This is Hillbillies in the Bush, and this is going to be a video response to Gavkoo and his bow drill attempts. Rather than write all this stuff down, Gavkoo, I thought maybe I would give you some pointers here. First of all, what we're going to look at is we're going to look at the fireboard itself, the hearth board. One of the things I noticed right off the bat, your notches is cut backwards. What you're looking for, and these are all burned out, you're looking for narrow up here and wide down here. This one right here, you might be able to see this one a little better. Notice how it's flared out at the bottom? The reason this is wide up here, it shouldn't be wide, it should be a little slit, is because this is burned out, this one's burned out. As they go down, the notch gets wider automatically because you want to flare out the bottom down here. Make it flared out. What this does is allow the dust from your ember to fall down in here, collect, build up a pretty good ember, and then reach the temperature critical enough to produce a coal. Your birch wood will work as long as it's good and dry. You can produce these in the woods. If you're in a high humidity environment, you better make sure that that tree is completely dead, not on the ground. If it's been raining, you better pick you at least a 4 or 5 inch tree and get to the heartwood, because you know that'll be good and dry. It is easier to do these with a seasoned piece, in other words, a piece that you keep in. That's why a lot of your Native Americans and actually the Egyptians would pack in some wood. They would make them a drill set, and then they would keep it inside with them because they realized that making one's a pain in the butt all the time. And I've made literally probably hundreds of these boards. This one just happens to be red cedar. I prefer red cedar. I prefer a yucca spindle, but before I started using yucca, I used red cedar and red cedar. That happens to be probably the best that I've found. Nothing beats yucca spindle. Nothing will beat a yucca spindle. Yucca has one of the lowest flash points of any wood out there, which means it'll produce an ember faster than any other wood. But your cottonwood, I've done a willow, red cedar, white cedar. I've actually made them out of hickory. I don't recommend doing that. Hickory's a hard wood, but I did it just to see if I could do it. But you better have everything down. You better build a couple hundred bow drill fires before you try any. That was an experiment. It wasn't something I would do regularly, because it took forever to do it and a lot of power and heat and everything else. But anyway, I'm going to show you the technique. First of all, you got to get your notch right, and this notch right here, I believe you can see how it's bellied out at the bottom, and it kind of slants in towards the top, towards your notch. This one here is about burned out, but I believe with this yucca spindle, I know I can still get, as you can see, there's hardly nothing there. I'm almost positive I can get at least 1 or 2 more out of here. This yucca burns up or goes away, consumes faster than the cedar. So with having a softer spindle than your hardwood, you can get multiple fires out of one hole. If not, I'll make a notch and show you. But you can see how on your video, your notch was wider up here at the top than it was at the bottom. You're not looking for a great big notch like this. You want to keep the notch small. A lot of guys will make a straight cut down. Instead of flaring it out at the bottom, they'll make a straight cut. That'll work too, but you're better off getting your white on the bottom. Let me show you the actual technique of a stance. Your stance has to be correct. I'm sure anybody can horse out a fire once they know what they're doing in the most goofiest way that you can think of. But this is the proper stance. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to show you how I'll be using the bow with my right hand and showing you what a right-hander would do. You want to get your board on something. It's a nice stable platform. What you want to do is get your foot. If you're right-handed, you want your left foot up in the air. You want your right leg back behind you. And there's a reason for this. I noticed on your video, while it looked maybe a little more comfortable the way you were doing it backwards, I noticed that you had no shoulder, no upper body onto that arm pushing down on your spindle. You were using raw muscle to do that. It's a lot easier if you get the correct stance. And when you're actually up here like this, you're actually just leaning forward, and you're not using so much as your arms as you are your whole back or your body weight. Your arm is just locked in so that you can, and it's kind of weird, you're not using as much pressure with your arm as you'd think. Let me get her set up. Now this spindle's kind of short, but it'll work. And let's see what we got here. You put this in like this. You want to wrap this arm around here and lock that wrist in. That's why you try and get your foot right up against the spindle, so you can lock this wrist in. Like right there, you could probably hold this right like this with an open palm and still do it. Notice I'm basically looking directly down on my spindle, or just a little bit off. This gives me a downward pressure without even having to hardly use any muscles in my arm. Basically, you want to try and get your spindle as straight as possible. You want to try and get nice long strokes. Starting out, especially with damp wood or wood that you find in the woods, you want to sit here and do this a while to get it all warmed up. Once you start getting a little more, you want to get them long strokes going. Give a little more pressure, a little more speed. You don't want to take your spindle off your board right away. You want to hold it there for just a second or two. Now, I don't think I've got a coal, but I wanted to let you know that when you stop, don't just jerk up real fast. Now let me go ahead and produce a coal, and I'll show you what I do. You want to basically just sit there and give it a little bit of time to grow. And I almost cut clear through that board. That coal will usually stick to your board, so just a little tap will release it. Now at this point in time, you have quite a bit of time. Let me zoom in on it. As you can see, that coal will sit right there and burn. Now, the longer you let it sit there, what it is, it's small particles of dust. The longer it sits there, those little particles will actually coagulate, I guess would be the word maybe. They'll actually pack into an ember. If you dump this into a tinder bundle too fast, it's just going to spread it apart and you're not going to have nothing. Now there's a little bit of wind here, so I don't need to do nothing. But as you can see, that coal is glowing and growing. And if I just sit here and kind of gently push this up, it'll compact that whole piece. That whole piece will be a coal. But I don't want this to get too long. I'm not going to blow it into flame. You can figure out how to do that, which that is a very important part. But you got jute twine, I noticed, and that is a great thing to use. It's natural, and it's very natural, and it'll work just fine. But give it a try and see if you've got to get your stance down right, for one. I'm sure the way you did it, you can do it. I'm just showing you the way it's been done for a long time, and there's reasons for it. It has to do with balance, stability, and using downward pressure without creating a whole bunch of strength in your arms to do it. And as you can see, this coal is still going. Notice how when I move it now, the whole pile is moving. That's because it's starting to coagulate the whole thing, and the whole thing will actually become a solid mass. And when you dump it in a tinder bundle, that's what you're after. So if you have any questions, you just send me a PM or whatever. I'm pretty good on these bow drills. If you've watched my channel, you've seen me crank out a few of them. If you're thinking that your wood's a little bit damp, there's nothing wrong with taking that birch set you have back to your house, letting it dry out. It's all about getting your first coal, and I'll even show you a little trick to do. You're using that shot glass, which is perfect, but I'll show you another little trick that I do with the kids and with all new people that's doing it, that it's all about letting them get a few fires built. That is the beauty of it. It'll keep them interested. Here's your little trick. Get you a seal bearing, and it's just in it. You can get these out of drills. I've heard skateboards. I've heard all kinds of stuff, and that way you don't have no friction on top. It's doing the same thing as your shot glass, but you could actually carry this small bearing. Let's see if I can get it out of there. You can carry this small bearing with you a lot easier than you can a shot glass. After you get your technique down, you get everything down, you've built your 20 or 30 fires, then go with all natural materials if you like. But there's nothing wrong with what they call cheating. I don't look at that as cheating for somebody that's a beginner to use stuff like this. But this coal's still going, as a matter of fact. But if you got any questions, just shoot me a PM. I hope this will help you, brother. I really want to see you succeed. It's no fun in constantly trying something and not getting it down. I tried for years when I was a kid to do it. Never could get it, so I just give up on it. And then here in the last, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, I wanted to learn how to do it, and I had a wood stove in my shop that I owned, and I built a fire every winter, every day in that wood stove with a bow drill. I would collect my tinder at night right before I left work. The next morning I would come in, I would build me a fire with a bow drill, and I did that for over 2 winters. Every day it was cold enough to have a fire, I built it with a bow drill. That gave me practice. It allowed me to make hundreds of fires, and I've been doing it ever since. But anyway, sorry it's got so long on you. I didn't mean it for it to. Shoot me a PM if you have any questions or comments, and I'll post this to a video response to you there, and I hope it helps you out, brother. Until then, keep cranking out them knives. You're doing an awesome job. We'll talk to you later.